one of the things that was said at the very beginning, that authenticity is a kind of relative concept. It's about the link between a characteristic and the claim. So, and what about the claim? The claim that the most obvious claim that comes to my mind, that it's been debated for decades at European level, is a claim on the origin. So, I wanted to know, what do you think about this, this aspect? Because we are talking about authenticity, but as Bruno said at the beginning, authenticity, you can find it ex post with infrared analysis, image analysis, and DNA analysis, but you can also establish it ex ante, in a sense. So.
Just maybe some precisions about these aspects. Well, the claims, in fact, they can be explicit. It is the case of the origin, and of course, it's a matter of debate, and it could be increased. All these aspects related to the origin, for instance, or the product is organic. It's another very well-known claim. And there are also implicit claims. The product is safe, for instance. So it is not a claim, an explicit, but it has to be safe anyway for the consumer. The authenticity, as I said, is mainly expected and checked using all the data that is collected through the food chain. And one example is also the development of the blockchain technologies related to this. That's a way also. But in any case, we will need, and we are still working on this topic, some analytical techniques that can be applied directly on the product. And that's the reason why we have been doing these researches in the different projects.
Yeah, thank you, Angelo. No, it's a very interesting topic because in my opinion, we should connect this as an example, origin, with another point that was touched during the presentation, which is the willingness to pay. I faced the issue of origin labeling since the last more or less 16 years. So we crossed each other during our pathway several times on this. And this is interlinked because at the end of the day, yes, if you hear consumers, they are interested in buying local, in having a kind of short supply chain. Origin is quite important, but at the end of the day, the real attitude of consumer is first of all driven by prices. Price is the first benchmark when a consumer enters into the real, I would say, environment, and this is quite important because it was showing me also in this project. Clitravi was part of mid-quality project, and for us it was quite interesting also to see how at a certain point Horizon, in our opinion, should target more the competitive approach and the reality, which means that if you start looking and going a little bit more in depth and analyzing the concrete aspects, so having partner of the project which are acting in the daily business, you understand that at the end of the day you have a very interesting hypothesis to test in the project, but when it comes then to the real attitude of consumer is completely different the way consumers are behaving. So price is very important, and that's why, but there are also other, I would say, origin is one claim, but there is also another aspect against the price, which is also the consumer perception. For someone, origin is important. For someone, maybe there is importance of animal welfare. We are entering into another way, what is quality for consumer, how consumers can perceive quality. Anyone has a different idea of quality. Meat quality had the idea to look also into some, I would say, intrinsic quality, so some index, but we can talk hours and days about this, and it is not conclusive. But again, the price is, the message is clear. Consumers, despite the willingness, the declared willingness to pay, then when they enter in the supermarket, the behavior is completely different.
And it was also in meat quality, there was a quite interesting the taste test in which in the end the Danish product with the highest industrial standards from the taste point of view with the blind taste testing is winning on the organic and so on. So there are contradictions there. Contradictions are not contradictions. It's reality, as you said. So it's something we should take into account.
That's a pity, because Horizon, in my opinion, again, should promote a little bit more. We have 4 amazing projects that arrive at the end, but now it's the question. So how can we implement more? How can we use, and that's, in my opinion, where Horizon should look a little bit more in a competitive approach.
Patrizia Caselli?
Simona.
Sì, chiedo scusa. Sorry. Simona Caselli.
Yes, thank you very much thank you very much for the invitation and for having me here. Well, I tend to agree with Paolo, because on the origin issue, we must consider that at the level of EU legislation, we can expect only a EU origin legislation, right? Because sometimes there is strange pretension on national approaches, which are, of course, not useful, I guess. On the other hand, you need something to communicate to the consumer clearly, because there was the point here: if the consumer is able, has the ability to choose, to understand what is in the product is in front of him. And this is very important, because as we know, also some marks that are based on already old consumer, already old legislation, for example, GIs or organic, are not too much known to consumers. Looking at the Commission analysis on this, the most popular is the organic sign, which is known to 30-35% of the people, while GIs still struggle around 13-15% of awareness from the consumers. And this is terrible, because this means that even the most promoted, the most well-known in some member state, like mine, I'm Italian, it is difficult for the consumer to recognize. Now there are some issues we saw already before in the presentation that consumers are really reactive on, for example, ethical points on animal welfare or some other issues. But at the end of the day, we also in Italy have made different market analysis and so on. Usually people, for decency, probably declare they can pay more, but then when they go to the supermarket, they don't, because there is a problem of purchasing power. And this in Italy is particularly high as a problem, because citizens has lost purchasing power in the last 10 years, and this is particularly evident in all the consumer attitudes. And so we see they follow basically offers, promotions, and all of that. So I can give you also my point of view as the president of the bigger dairy group in Italy. My cooperative has a very well-known mark in Italy, which is Granarolo. our origin is clear because the entire value chain is based on milk collected by members, which are all in Italy. The Granarolo uses almost only our milk, so it's very clear, it's very transparent, and it's very traceable. So we use also the claim of the Italian products, as some colleagues from other nations producing milk are doing, because this basically is still working on your population, because if you are quite high in reputation or in quality, it's okay. The point is that now retailers have these huge policies on using these enormous questionnaires that they sent you with 400 questions about almost everything from packaging to livestock way of doing livestock and so on, agrarian specificities, and this is orienting. Probably is more orienting than the consumer, because they ask you, for example, there was a question that posed in Italy probably is not particularly intelligent, because, for example, they ask us if you use some additives in feeding, which is very popular in Northern Europe, where they use it. But in Italy, almost 60% or 65% of milk is going either to GIs or organic. In organic, you cannot use them. And in GIs, you can use them only if the disciplinary allows it, which it doesn't. So this question, if posed in Italy, has no sense. But gives you the idea on who's orienting now the consumers, without the consumer to know it, probably. But this kind of activity from the retailers are really to be taken into account, because they are in a way orienting, or they have their own idea of what is good and what is not, which not always is correct.
Grazie Simona Caselli. Thanks Simona Caselli. Andrea Gavinelli, also for decades maybe into this labeling issue.
Authenticity and the rest.
Authenticity, okay.
In any case, thank you. Thank you, Angelo, and thank you, everyone, for having this possibility to sit here as an animal welfare expert leading this unit since long time, and part of this project in different forms. I have to say that this discussion is definitely, to be pragmatic, not new. Definitely, I think there is an urgency to put in this algorithm more elements, because we all know that there is this disconnection between what I say I like and what I'm able to pay, and there is the loss of power in terms of consumer capacity to spend money on what they eat. But there is a word also that is always popping up, that is the competitiveness area. Competitiveness is not only make of price. And this I learned in my life when I watch so many of the different stakeholders I have to meet as leading an animal welfare policy unit, that is try to find a strategic approach to it for the future. It's clear that the market effort by the main retailers, that is grab the clients as much as you can, and not only about the price. Because we eat for two reasons. Definitely because we need to eat, but also for the pleasure of it. And the Italian knows very well, but not only. The fact is that the combination of the market-driven strategy and the politics are essential in this moment, because both, if they are in antithesis, could kill the future of zootechnics. Because this is really what you see in what is the end, the trust. And I looked, because some members of the parliament here are very engaged in this. The trust of the European system in this has been essential, because we created it. 30 years ago, I started to work on animal welfare, and when I started 30 years ago, Common Agricultural Policy was another one, was not incorporating nothing about even the development of rural areas. Now, part of this is also to find alternatives for employment in the rural areas, when in fact you have systematic problem that challenging your persistence on the territory with your farm. So authenticity for me is an important element because it's a factor that is driving the fact of being European and proud to be European. For me, authenticity, when I meet people from different projects, and so we have the best researcher, I think, in the world in this area, and I'm very proud of it because I've been pushing on animal welfare investment in research since more than 30 years ago with welfare quality, and Harry Blockhaus was remembered here as one of the father of it. To be honest with you, I see that to grant a future, we need to be strongly European and strongly believing that authenticity is really a market tool. And how you can build authenticity for Europe is only to have technology, research, and know how to invest in it before the others. And this is a competition, it's a challenge. Now, it's true, the import from the external world is an important defeat, is a challenge because it's the competition on price and many issues like that. To defend this area and the authenticity and the market-driven capacity of our buyers, we need the trust before any protectionist agenda. This is really the most important thing. And the traceability and all the elements we saw here and we were mentioned are really the authenticity problem, and I cut here, are really part of this equation. I profit because I saw already what is around. And then I am one step ahead of our friends and colleagues here. But it's clear that when you see sustainability coming here twice, and there is welfare mentioned twice, quite big, and competitiveness together, and resilience, these are the words that for me are part of the label of Europe. That's what we have to invest to. And I believe that the presentation of the livestock strategy is an important appointment that the Commission is having in June. Very important for every one of us to sell on this. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea Gavinelli, and thanks also for having anticipated the next round of questions, because now we have the answers from the audience. So, despite the fact that, for instance, meat quality emphasized the ethical concerns on meat production, we see that in the room, at least, sustainability and sustainable are the main concepts that come to mind of the attendees when thinking about the future of the EU livestock farming. So, what is your comment on this, Bruno?
Okay, I would just like to comment a little bit, indeed, on the fact that sustainability, indeed, is very strong. We can see this. We have also welfare, and I was surprised not to see quality. Quality is very small, I think. Quality, because I think at the European level we should be proud, really, of the quality of the products and the very high standards that we have. And I was surprised not to see them. So maybe they are also included in the words sustainability and welfare and so on. So that was my first comment. And maybe a second comment also is to see the diversity of the answers there, and maybe all are quite important. And what we have tried to do in the 4 projects is to address the different aspects: sustainability, welfare, and also intrinsic quality and authenticity at the same time, in the same project. And we tried to have a holistic approach. And I think it's very important also seeing this figure. And maybe in the future, what the research can bring is to go further, because we can see that on the methodological point of view, it's not so easy. And I hope research will be able to go further in these holistic approaches, because, as it has been already said, it's always a pity to work to try to improve only one aspect at the expense of the other. So it's easy to say, maybe not so easy to translate it for you, for the policymakers and for the regulations and so on. So I hope European researchers will be able to help in the future on this.
We all hope so. Paolo Patruno, a comment on the slide we are seeing.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Angelo. Yes, first of all, again, you see that the perception of anyone can be quite different, but at the end of the day, there are some common points. No, I can say that first of all, what I tend to see, generally speaking, and the project that I joined was also a benchmark, that when you have an inclusive approach and not a divisive approach, it's quite better, and you are able to come to a specific solution. That is also my hope for the EU livestock farming, the EU livestock strategy, which is under preparation. So with a different, I would say, landscape than the one we had some years ago in the livestock, where there were a divisive approach which didn't lead to conclusive I would say, actions. Then, when it comes to the specific question, I would say that, to my mind, in reality, there are two words that are coming to my mind. Competitiveness is the first one, and pragmatism the second one, which are also linked in a way or another. We need to shape, we have some strength in our EU livestock system. For sure, we have, as Bruno was flagging, quality and sustainability are two assets that can also be implemented and become a competitive weapons for us. But we need really to shape a strategy which can make sustainability and quality as competitive asset. We don't have to close completely our eyes and thinking that we are alone, because we are competing with other production systems outside Europe. We need to find the good pathway to make our system competitive, stable, and we don't have to make, in my opinion, mistakes to create advantages to the systems, to the other production system. Because, as an example, in my opinion, looking at how the research is moving, how the innovation is moving in our sector, we need to use research and innovation to make our sector more competitive. We do not have to look into reduction of numbers, because it is a mistake, and it is just a competitive advantage to others to increase the number of our animals in animal population in Europe. And last but not the least, looking and trying to make a real deal. So I come back to I want to close the circle to the very beginning, creating an inclusive approach and a debate and not a divisive approach. If we want really to deliver, we need to understand, as Andrea was flagging before, we are Europeans, and we need to be proud of being Europeans. We need to understand where are our strengths, but at the same time, if something is also resulting in a weak point for us, we need to correct before it is too late. Thank you.
Simona Caselli.
Yes, I think the results reflects my opinion, actually, because I'm talking from a cooperative point of view. No, I'm part of COGECA, and cooperatives needs to be sustainable. It's absolutely necessary for cooperative to be sustainable, because there are intergenerational. So in every cooperative, you have to consider, you have to administrate the cooperative and to make your choices and to make your strategies, considering you leave the cooperative to another generation. So in order to be competitive for another generation, you need to be sustainable now. Because otherwise your reputation is not good enough, because otherwise the retailer wouldn't consider you enough, because it's basically the correct thing to do, actually, in order to give perspective to our job. in livestock. So, so it's clear that every cooperative is investing a lot in sustainability. I have to remember, probably I don't have to remember it here, but lots of our livestock cooperatives are under the CSRD regulation still, even after the simplification, because we are big. So we are now, just to consider, to be pragmatic and what's happening outside, now we are doing a huge effort to digitalize all our activities in order to report correctly the huge amount of information we have to report on our sustainability. So this means investing lots of money that at the moment is not particularly supported by the CAP. And this is a point I put there because probably in our sector, or at least in the milk sector, that now is experiencing an overproduction at the EU level, in the next CAP we should support more quality investment than quantity investment, because we are already producing probably more than we can afford. But we need to invest in digitalizing the system, in animal welfare, in tackling the animal diseases that due to climate change and so on we are struggling with, because last year was quite a complicated year on this matter. So we need this kind of approach, and we also need to consider in a better way the problem of the opportunity given us by the agro energy we can produce. Consider that biomethane, biogas, and so on. Talking about this in these days, I think it's clear that we cannot lose other time in continuing improving this activity. There's a huge amount of contribution that this sector can do in our capability of having our own energy in Europe. I'm quite mad at the fact that I remember that during the 70s there were some the Sundays you cannot use your car. There was a moment in which we should have to consider austerity because of oil shocks, and now we are there again. So this is not possible. So I think everyone should do his best effort, and the livestock sector can do really a good job on that. Finally, I have to consider this. To be sustainable and to be competitive, we have to program production. So I think in the next CAP we should consider that market-oriented policies are to be reinforced, and particularly CMO, even in this sector. Because otherwise it's very difficult to give stability to the market. So I think we have to think differently. And we need a level playing field, of course, in Europe, because I'm quite confident in the fact we can still develop the internal market for consumption. But we need a level playing field at the internal level, which we have not. And I'm quite, in a way, embarrassed by the fact that the Commission in the MFF put an entire chapter on the internal market, to how to make the internal market better, and then on the other side create this unique fund in which we renationalize the policies, and particularly CAP. So we will have 27 CAP that are fragmented in the market. I don't understand. Either we fragment or we put it together. Okay. So this is a consideration I put there because at the moment I really need to have clarity on this point.
Thanks. Andrea Gavinelli started this part of the conversation because he had the screen. But what would you like to add to this? And if I may invite also to change the slide when Andrea Gavinelli has finished. Already. So you can again. Okay. Let's see. What do you see as the thing? Okay. This was the the hard one, the difficult one because of the options. So workforce and generational succession is the biggest challenge, the single greatest challenge facing EU livestock producers in the next 5 years. But then we have competition, we have environmental and climate regulations, we have feed and input costs, and declining consumer demand for animal products. Andrea Gavinelli, a comment from your side? We start from you.
Grazie. Well, at a first glance, thank you very much for this privilege anyway, but I pick up from also what Simona just said. To be honest with you, I fully endorse what she concluded about the planning, the programming, the capacity of increase the level playing field situation, cioè to correct this for the future. Because anyway, it's fitting perfectly for what is the fear that we have here, that the generational succession. She started about this issue about cooperative and the generational sustainability. Definitely, and this is incredibly, is matching when we had this public consultation on what's next about animal welfare, where we received at the European level more than 200,000 replies. And to be honest with you, on these replies, we had, I have here the data, 36% were generic about the competition in terms of internal market, but 70% were about a level playing field, in the sense to ensure a transparent system about animal welfare, but is applicable to the concept of traceability and authenticity we talked before. The generational succession is, for me, connected also with this capacity to invest all what we are doing now in research. Was said also what Paolo before. Paolo said we need also to step up from research to implementation. And this was always a big effort that the EU in this area of Horizon is trying. Now, we reach a level in which it is becoming, for me, an emergency. An emergency exactly because to ensure this transition to the generation of the next. Because we can transmit to the next generation the savoir-faire, the knowledge of, for example, food safety, because we are very much. But the demand of what's to grant for the farming in terms of technology and investment is now ramping up to a level that, for example, you saw animal diseases coming out so much in the other previous one. Animal disease and the way to face them needs to be clearly fight with technology and capacity from biosecurity, that means for training of the farmer, but also weapons, I mean vaccines and all the rest. So it's clear cut that there is a necessary transposition of a new vision that incorporates, in fact, the three main elements we saw in the research: the genetics, the capacity for the animal to be sustainable in terms of the coping with the environmental condition and the new technologies, and third, to match also a European characteristics, because this is also the competitiveness. The market is driven also by this. That's for me the reading. And I conclude saying the declining of consumer demand for animal products, I strongly agree on what is there. In the sense, it's not the fear. Till we have the passion for what we eat, that is another important element, and this is what we have to transmit, in my opinion, as Europeans. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Simona Caselli.
Once again, this reflects my vote, because I voted for the workforce and generational succession, because this is really a very important point. Consider that livestock activity is an activity that needs huge investments. So it's difficult for someone to begin, to start from the beginning. So normally you need to have a kind of succession in the farm, but it's not easy. at the moment due to all the difficulties we have in particularly the cost level, discontinued shocks, even now on energy prices that are quite connected to the competitiveness of the system, and also the interest of young farmers to stay in the farm, into the family farm. As a cooperative, we recently developed a program that is called the Next Generation Gran Latte, in which 70 sons of our members are participating quite a long period of training, so 2 years, starting from European policies to anything else, in order to prepare them that are considered to be the next generation administrating the cooperative, and to make them understand complexity. And we are going to Denmark probably at the end of the training in order to open mind and so on. But this is really a point. And also we have a workforce problem, because while we are digitizing and we are going into huge innovation and technologies, we also need basics activities, and now it's very difficult to find people for that. And also European policies are not clearly addressing this, because normally every fund also for training is based for high-level training, while sometimes we also need the basic training that it has to be said, is normally made by immigrants. Another problem would be probably feed and inputs costs, because I'm happy that there is now the protein plans and so on, but I saw at the last Outlook conference that in the next 10 years, or until 2035, we are not expecting protein production in Europe to augment significantly. So we will stay dependent, and this is another problem.
Okay, thanks, Simona Caselli. We are running out of time, so I would invite Paolo Patruno and Bruno Martin to have a quick comment on the slide.
Yeah. Thank you, Angelo. I will stay brief, because I would like also in the closing remarks to hear the answer to this question from our host Benoit today, that can, as a farmer, can maybe help us a little bit more than us. No, in answering this question, I want to recall a point that Simona was mentioning before, the 400 questions checklist. So it's clear that if you are lost in a way where producing is not simple, that you have to respect those checklists, losing a lot of time in, I would say, standard imposed, not only, I'm not entering into the legal standard we have in the European Union, which are another topic, but we have some kind of legislation. We started, the European Union started recently, I would say, an exercise of simplification. That's not the case, because most probably the way and the conditions where the livestock producers were navigating were not ideally, and this is when you have and you are losing so many energies, so many, and capitalizing so much I would say efforts in applying those kind of checklists. So the way you are producing is not you don't have I would say an environment that is working for you. It's clear that you can then suffer from shocks of the market, food and feed input, but also competition from non-EU imports, because if you are not competing with the level playing field, it's clear that the problems are mounting. And last but not the least, it's not the best way to invite the next generation to enter into the business. But then I want to hear Benoit's point.
Just a short comment about the workforce and the generational succession and the problems that we face related to this. It has not been said until now, but all the animal sector in general in the society is facing really recurrent criticisms about, when we are talking about the animal sector, we are thinking of the sad examples related to the animal welfare standards or the GHG emissions and so on. So the opinion of the young generation maybe is not always very good related to the animal sector. We have to be conscious about that. And maybe also here we should focus a little bit more on all the positive aspects and all the services that are given by the animal sector in general. And when we are talking about biodiversity, about landscape preservation and so on, we have to say that it's thanks to animals. And animals are the only, and cattle in particular, and ruminants in particular, are the only able to transform an non-edible resources into very high-value proteins. So we should emphasize maybe a little bit more on that. And here again, I think that the researcher may help in this direction, help also in quantifying all the positive aspects related to the animal production. Thank you.